Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 150, No Big Whoop. The episode begins when Ash and the gang are on their way to Goldenrod City when they stumble upon a nearby building and question what the fuck its purpose was, in the middle of nowhere. They stop atop a nearby hill to examine it, and Brock is about to state an assumption as to what the building was, when suddenly, something lands on his back from atop a nearby tree, causing him to freak out and fall down the hill. When he falls to the ground, he immediately stops a girl in her tracks who was running off into the building to go do something, and she immediately checks on him to make sure that he was okay. Just then, the thing that had fallen onto Brock's back, being a blue Pokemon, jumps off and into the girl's arms, causing her to immediately apologize to Brock, stating that his fall was essentially her fault because this blue Pokemon belonged to her. She then introduces herself as Alicia and her Pokemon as Wooper, and explains that her Wooper always seemed to get into trouble, no matter what she did. Brock, being the simp that he was, accepts Alicia's apology and begins flirting with her as usual, but then Misty and Ash make their entrance as Misty drags Brock off, preventing him from embarrassing himself even further. Misty then apologizes on Brock's behalf, and decides to question Alicia on what the building was, as that was still her primary concern. Alicia reveals that the building happened to be a Wooper preschool, which essentially acted as a place to raise a whole bunch of Wooper, explaining that she had always loved to hang around Wooper since a young age, and felt that this area would be the perfect place to see them grow, particularly due to the little pond just outside the school, which Wooper proceeded to jump into and play in, along with a whole bunch of other Wooper. Ash then uses his Pokedex on the Wooper to find out more information, and it tells him that Wooper happened to be the pre-evolution of Quagsire, which causes Ash to remember the situation with Quagsire and the GS Ball. Misty then asked Alicia what her training of the Wooper entailed, leading Alicia to reveal that it wasn't your typical training that you might expect when you think of Pokemon training, like, battling and whatever, because these Wooper were still too young, they were in preschool, so they do preschool-esque activities. For example, Alicia proceeded to break out a tambourine and use it to command her Wooper to sing along. As soon as the Wooper heard the tambourine, they immediately all started singing and dancing, splashing around in the pool. Essentially, Alicia's goal was more to nurture them, as opposed to training. Ash and Misty watched the Woopers splash around and commented on how cute they were, and Brock agreed, although unbeknownst to Ash and Misty, who were distracted by the Wooper, Brock was actually talking about Alicia, thinking she was cute instead. Fucking simp. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was currently lost in the woods, hungry as fuck as usual, and thankfully, Jessie managed to find a mushroom, and was immediately about to eat it, when James and Meowth unfortunately informed her that it was a poisonous mushroom. I don't know how they knew this, but okay. Jessie throws away the mushroom in anger as all three Team Rocket members complain about how they were starving as fuck and all that they could find were fucking poisonous mushrooms. Are you serious? God damn it. Jessie was by far taking it the hardest, fucking ranting about how they hadn't had any food for weeks, and James wants to shut her up, so he suggests that they ask Giovanni for some money. But Meowth retorts that they'd already spent all of the money that Giovanni had allowed them, and the only way that they could get more was to capture a Pokemon, which they had failed to do. So that confirms that they don't get paid if they don't catch Pokemon. So yeah, no wonder they're fucking starving. They never do anything. The hungry Jessie then declares that Team Rocket would find a rare Pokemon no matter what, and as if on cue, Wobbuffet popped out of its Pokeball on its own, reminding Team Rocket of the fact that the only Pokemon that they'd acquired recently was a pretty fucking lame one, who couldn't even do any main attacks. So they suddenly don't like Wobbuffet now? I thought they liked its counter ability. Maybe they were just hungry and bitter. They probably just wanted to use Wobbuffet as their punching bag or some shit. We know that Jessie hated it because it exchanged in exchange for her Lickitung, so that's probably why she was so rude to it, and proceeded to call it back immediately. Meanwhile, as Alicia was talking to Ash and the gang more about Wooper, they were having some tea and cookies. Unfortunately, this peaceful picnic was broken when Alicia got a phone call from her mother, informing her that her mother was in the hospital because she had broken her leg. All because she fell down some stairs. Alicia wants to go visit her mother in the hospital, but she's worried that the Wooper would go out of hand or cause some trouble while she was gone, like how the Wooper tried to literally fucking attack Brock when she wasn't looking. Brock then steps in, being the simp that he was, and tells Alicia to go to her mother, informing her that he, Ash, and Misty would look after the Wooper while she was gone, volunteering Ash and Misty for a job that they did not agree to, but they should be used to it by now. Brock's simping made him do reckless things. Alicia greatly accepts Brock's offer, and gives him a little book that would tell him some tricks on how to raise Wooper properly, and then rides off on her motorcycle to the hospital, as Brock waves goodbye as Ash and the gang see her off. After Alicia goes, Ash and the gang returned inside the preschool, and then went out back to the pond that they were at earlier, where all the Wooper still should have been located. However, much to Brock's dismay, all of the Wooper were gone. He had already failed to take care of them the second after Alicia left. Brock had a reaction where he almost turned to stone. Fucking that rivals his Professor Ivy reaction. Thankfully though, Pikachu then spotted a trail of water going from outside the pool to one of the rooms inside the preschool. So, Pikachu and Ash and the gang trailed this water, and eventually found themselves in the preschool kitchen, where all the Wooper were eating all the food there, and just wreaking general havoc. Fucking doing parkour on all the counters and shit. Your typical misbehaving child. Think of it like that. They weren't preschool after all. This leads Brock to utilize the book about raising Wooper that Alicia had gave him, so that he can try and find out a solution to end the Wooper's havoc. And the book tells him that the best way to get a Wooper to listen to you was by offering it food, and showing them affection. So, Brock gets out a piece of Pokemon food that he had, and shows it to one of the Wooper, and the Wooper really wanted this food, so it proceeds to lick it out of Brock's hand, and then lick his face as thanks. When the other Wooper see the food, they immediately get jealous, and jump on top of Brock, hoping that he had more. Realizing that the Wooper weren't really listening to him, they were just going nuts for some food, Brock shoved the Wooper off of him, leaving him covered in slobber from all of their licks, as he asked Ash what else the book said, hoping that there was another way to get the Wooper to listen. Ash revealed that there was, and the second best way was actually to play the tambourine that Alicia had played earlier. Ash and Brock panic, as Alicia was the only one of them that knew how to play the tambourine, but it turns out that wasn't the case, as Misty revealed that she had played the tambourine when she was younger, so she excitedly picks it up and begins to play it in hopes to get the Wooper to listen, but she must not have been very good, because the Wooper have almost no reaction whatsoever. Misty throws Alicia's tambourine down to the ground in anger, allowing Togepi to jump down and excitedly play it, because it wanted to get in on the fun as well. And Togepi must have been a way better tambourine player than Misty, because all the Wooper proceed to do whatever Togepi does, following its trail. So this was definitely a way to get them to listen. They follow Togepi all the way back to the pool, as Misty complains why the fuck the Wooper listened to Togepi playing the tambourine and not her, with Brock stating his assumption that it was probably because a Pokemon was more attracted to a Pokemon's beat on the tambourine than a human's. Or Misty just sucked ass, I guess we'll never know. Brock then goes up to Togepi, who was sitting by the pool, and congratulates it on actually doing something useful, and stares at the Wooper happily, knowing that he hadn't failed Alicia yet, and maybe she would give him a chance as a reward. But then Misty butted in as she began to panic, realizing that one Wooper was still missing. She knew this, as Alicia had previously explained to her off-screen that her favorite Wooper was one with a love heart marking on its chest, and Misty noticed that one was gone. Brock was devastated and ashamed by this, as he almost turned to stone yet again, in disbelief at the fact that he didn't know about Alicia's favorite Wooper, even though he thought that she was going to be his fucking wife. He swore to himself that he would not let any other Wooper escape, so he proceeded to sit down and grab the tambourine and play it along with Togepi, guarding the Wooper to make sure that they would never leave, like her favorite one did. Misty and Brock tell him that they should instead focus their efforts on trying to find the missing Wooper as opposed to protecting the other ones, but Brock is unable to move due to his sadness and shock, so Misty and Ash just decide to go off on their own and look for it, leaving Brock in charge of the Wooper and Togepi. Ash and Misty then begin their search, starting by looking in the preschool, and they look in the main entrance area before hearing a crash come from the kitchen, so they run into the kitchen where they find the Wooper, who had just knocked into some plates in the sink. Ash and Misty then go to reclaim the Wooper, however the Wooper dodges their hands as it hops from fixture to fixture across the room, on fucking window ledges, tables. Ash and Misty chase it around the room, almost fucking destroying the room in the process, including some plates, which Ash and Misty have to stop from breaking after Wooper knocks them off the table as he runs. Then, Wooper also knocks off some cutlery from the counter, almost killing Pikachu in the process, as the knife almost landed directly in his head. He was only saved by a peach basket. Due to Ash and Misty being so preoccupied from stopping all the plates from breaking, this allows Wooper to sneak out of the kitchen and run outside as it climbs up the hill that Brock had fell down previously. Eventually, Ash and Misty were able to make it outside and begin climbing up the cliff as well, but by the time they had made it to the top, Wooper had already ran into the forest above the hill, laughing at their attempts to catch up, viewing it as a little game, once again because he was a little mischievous kid. Ash and Misty continue to give chase, despite the Wooper's annoying laugh, and eventually they arrive at a rope bridge that was severely damaged, it seems like, as soon as Ash and Misty stepped on, it began to sway everywhere. Ash initially didn't realize the bridge's bad condition, so he ran across it, desperate to get the Wooper, but was immensely shocked when he almost fell off and died, falling into the water below. Ash managed to pull himself together as he now slowly walked across the bridge as it creaked, ready to break at any moment, with Misty and Pikachu following behind him, even more careful. Eventually, they reached the Wooper, who had stopped in its tracks so it could watch this pitiful display of Ash and Misty's desperation, as it laughed at them. When Misty makes it up to the Wooper, she pleads for it to come back home, and the Wooper seemingly agrees for some reason, as it calmly walks towards Misty. But just kidding, it was actually just trolling, as it proceeded to run immediately back to the other side of the bridge, where it was originally heading, and its speed causes the already near broken bridge to become even more broken, on the literal verge of breaking. So, when Ash and Misty, who were now angered by the Wooper's trolling, decide to give up on walking across slowly and run across to get Wooper in anger, the bridge finally breaks, only giving time for Wooper and Pikachu to cross as Ash and Misty fall, though thankfully they grab on to the bridge's ropes before they fall to their death. It's kind of confusing to explain, but just look at the picture. Ash and Misty are hanging onto the bridge, you see it. Pikachu looks down at Ash and Misty in concern, but Ash simply tells him to leave them hanging, literally, and go after the Wooper himself. Pikachu reluctantly obliges. Meanwhile, despite Team Rocket's declaration to catch a rare Pokemon, they knew that they still needed to eat before they caught one, otherwise they would fucking die. So, Meowth was gonna boil some mushroom soup, although he needed mushrooms first, so he sent Jessie and James to go looking for some. As Jessie and James failed to return after multiple hours, Meowth complained to himself that he was probably gonna have to have mushroom soup without any mushrooms, adding that would have no flavor whatsoever. Haha, so funny, Meowth. When suddenly, he spots a giant mushroom in the bushes and lunges for it. However, his hunger must have been making him go insane, as it wasn't actually a giant mushroom, but it was instead the Wooper that had escaped. Meowth, due to his deliriousness, doesn't realize that it's a Wooper though, so he's immensely shocked when what he thought was a mushroom runs away from him when he lunges for it. He returns to his boiling pot of water, somewhat freaked out, and Jessie and James finally return, actually having found some non-poisonous mushrooms, and Meowth instantly informs them of the giant mushroom that had escaped him. Jessie and James are very curious by this, and they all proceed to go looking for it, leaving their mushrooms behind in the process. So, with Team Rocket gone looking for it, the Wooper then emerges from the bush where it was hiding, and proceeds to eat all of Team Rocket's mushrooms. Damn. Team Rocket return from their search for the giant mushroom, obviously unsuccessful, and spot the Wooper just as it finishes their mushrooms. Still failing to come to the conclusion that the giant mushroom was actually a Wooper, Team Rocket are severely angry at it, and Jessie goes to punch it in anger, but as the Wooper smiles at them, they can't bring themselves to attack such a cute Pokemon. That was Wooper's true power. It had such deceiving cuteness that it could be a cunt all it wanted, and no one would care. Jessie, so enamored by the Wooper's cuteness, suggests that they bring Wooper to Giovanni as their rare Pokemon, stating that they would probably even get a bonus reward due to Wooper being so cute. Adding that Giovanni may even forgive them of all their past failures because of its cuteness. Like, damn, was Wooper that cute? I don't know, man. I know Smallland would agree, but I think he might be the only one. Due to Jessie wanting to be gentle with the Wooper, when she goes to capture it, she decides not to use a net like Team Rocket usually does, but instead simply tries to catch it in a Pokeball, but this obviously fails due to Wooper already having Alicia as a trainer. To make matters even worse for Team Rocket, Pikachu, having followed the Wooper, finally arrived and proceeded to defend the Wooper from Team Rocket's capture yet again, likely because not only did it want to protect the Wooper, due to it being Alicia's Pokemon, but because it knew that being in a Pokeball sucked ass, especially if you were going to be owned by Team Rocket. Team Rocket tries to convince Pikachu to get him to use his Pokemon speaking to convince the Wooper to go into the Pokeball for them by offering Pikachu some of their mushroom scraps, but Pikachu still refuses. Just then, Ash and Misty arrive, somehow having climbed up the bridge ropes and onto the surface, and they confirm to Team Rocket when they see them trying to catch the Wooper that Wooper in fact already had a trainer. So this leads Team Rocket to try and capture Wooper the way they usually would, with nets, much to Jessie's initial reluctance. But due to Wooper having slippery skin like the Quagsire, it's able to escape the nets, as Jessie, James, and Meowth can't grab onto it. Ash and Misty try and reclaim Wooper as well, and in order to stop them, Jessie sends out her Wobbuffet and orders it to do an attack, before embarrassingly remembering that Wobbuffet could only do counterattacks, so it was useless right now. Jessie immediately recalls Wobbuffet in frustration, and instead sends out her Arbok and has it tackle the Wooper, allowing Jessie to capture it in a net, although Arbok did hit everyone in the process, as it was too big to just land on the Wooper. Having the Wooper in hand, though, Team Rocket proceed to make their escape into their Meowth balloon, with the help of James Weezing, who uses Smokescreen, so that Team Rocket can get away undetected. However, right as Team Rocket were about to fly away, in a Deus Ex Machina moment, Alicia had showed back up at her house and found Brock, who explained to her the situation, and because of this, Alicia and Brock had come rushing to the scene in their motorcycle. Yeah! Of course, this causes Team Rocket to momentarily stop their escape, because they had to do their motto and explain their plan to Alicia, because she wasn't familiar with them yet. Anyways, once their motto is done, Ash, Brock, and Misty suggest sending out their Pokemon to reclaim the Wooper for them, but Alicia states that she had an easier way, which was simply calling the Wooper, stating that since she had developed such a bond with it, it would actually listen to her. So, she proceeded to call the Wooper, telling it that playtime was over, and that it had to go back inside, once again insinuating the fact that the entire reason this Wooper ran away was because it just wanted to play a little game. Anyways, Wooper is so excited upon hearing Alicia's voice that it simply jumps high up out of the net and toward Ash and the gang, but Arbok and Weezing then jump out of the balloon as well, and try and attack it. However, Wooper counters by using tackle and slam attacks ordered by Alicia. This shocks Ash and the gang along with Team Rocket, who thought that the Wooper was simply just a weak little kid at this point, but Alicia reveals that this Wooper was especially strong and gifted. This Wooper was certainly physically strong, as Alicia then ordered it to grab Arbok's tail and throw it into Weezing, which it did, which sent Arbok and Weezing flying into the Meowth balloon, sending Team Rocket blasting off. Ash and the gang then returned to the preschool, and were happy to see that none of the other Wooper had run off, since Togepi was still playing the tambourine. Alicia then reveals to Ash and the gang that her mom was actually okay, and by the time she got to the hospital, she really wasn't in any distress, which makes sense. It was just a broken leg, like it's not the end of the world. Brock then pivots the topic of the conversation to how strong Wooper was, and questions Alicia on what type of other secret teaching methods she must have done, as opposed to the tambourine. Alicia clarified, though, that like she said earlier, she didn't focus on actually training her Pokemon. She didn't train the Wooper to be strong. The reason why it was so strong was because it was able to catch people off guard, because they wouldn't expect something so cute and small to be so strong. Do you understand the moral yet? Cute and small things can be strong as well? Man, I can't wait for Horizons when we actually get a somewhat more serious plot. Brock then asks Alicia if he could stay behind at her preschool so that he could learn more about how she taught the Wooper. But when he adds that he wanted to learn about her too, Misty realizes that this was just Brock being his usual flirty, simpy self, and drags him off as a result, causing Alicia to laugh, as Brock cries, knowing that that must mean he was rejected. The episode then ends with Ash and the gang saying goodbye to Alicia as they continue on their journey, with Brock still having tears in his eyes, and Alicia informing them that they could come and visit the Wooper anytime. Yeah, I think I'd be good personally after a day like today.